Hi, I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist here in Kelowna, British Columbia. My studio is called Bandry, and today I'm here with Roger Lee in his studio at Art Framer. And today we're going to talk about all things creative, how art plays in our lives, and how that affects everybody around us. Thank you for joining us.
So what we're doing here today is we're talking about not just art, but creativity. And there is an overlap, obviously, but there's also very distinct differences. I tend to see one sort of as the spiritual aspect of it, yes, and the other more as the outward expression, let's say, the realization of something. But creativity itself is sort of an ephemeral sort of entity for most of us, if we have any sort of awareness of it.
I think so. I think we're putting thought into something we're creating.
Yeah.
And those thoughts don't have to be concrete.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the culmination of all of those thoughts that kind of come together and manifest in something that, is multidimensional even.
Yeah. But there has to be some intention, right?
Yes.
So it's not just the thought, because we can all daydream and nothing comes of it, but it's a thought that is attached to an intention, a desire to externalize the thought or make it known or be witnessed. Yeah.
Yes, and it can be something as simple as I need lunch.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a pot of soup.
Yeah.
Then your creativity comes into how that comes together. Or it could be a little more complex, like I've got this thought running through my head, and you'd know more about this, is I'm going to write a song.
Yeah.
That could be a song. I want to share that through my music, through another avenue of,
I've still, even though I've not written songs in quite a long time, I still keep notes of ideas. Oh, that would be a great song someday. So I have this, just like for painting, I have thousands of photos. I thought, I'll paint them someday. But that's interesting. That first step of just document it, get it down so that later it can flourish into something unknown or not.
And that, like you say, it can be inspired by photographs or by something someone said.
Yeah. Sometimes
it's depending on. There's so many different things that we're learning now about how we all process things differently, and I don't know the term for it, but how people can see things in color, hear music in color. Their senses kind of translate things a little bit differently, and how that comes together. That to me is really fascinating.
Yes. The human brain is complex.
In how we create and also in how we view things.
Yes. That's right.
We're not all seeing things through the same lens. Some of us are colorblind.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's so many things that play into how we view art.
I think often the things that, the stimuli that affects our senses are often attached to our experiences as well.
Absolutely.
And we can be triggered by things in a unique way that the next person just isn't. We can have our imaginations fired up by something that the next person just wouldn't even think about. So again, very complex and very personal, very subjective.
It is, and sometimes for me as a painter, I don't always recognize that. I sit down to paint, I don't always have an idea in mind of what I want to paint.
Yeah.
I talk to the paints, I find out what colors appeal to me that day. It's like reading a tarot deck.
Right.
Different things will pop up each time you look at the cards. Yeah. So when I look at my paints, it's very similar. Different colors will speak to me, and
so there's got to be a meditative sort of.
I think there really is,
process,
And then very often, just starting to play with those colors. And I noticed the other day we had been talking with my youngest daughter, who is involved with the evacuations and some of the fires in northern Alberta that kind of thing. And I try to be supportive and put on a brave front, but it was obviously in my emotional bank. And when I sat down to paint, the painting that came out was very, very indicative of a stark, burnt out kind of place.
Yeah, your emotional response coming through. And that's the kind of artist you are, which is really something I really appreciate and admire about you. there's a whole spectrum of creativity, a whole spectrum of human brains, there's a whole spectrum of art. And yours is manifested in a very certain, in a particular way.
It makes for, there's never a dull moment, because I surprise myself often with what the end result turns out to be.
There's a meditative part of it, and then there's an expression that is very much linked to play.
Absolutely.
I think that's very good.
Yeah.
Very interesting. It channels creativity in a unique way. Mm-hmm. Other people sit down more with more structure and more concrete intention and more maybe deliberate necessity or whatever. But the freedom that you approach things is really great.
It's interesting how our personalities determine that. Yeah. People will sit with a photograph and they'll want that to be, as precise. Their finished piece to be as precise to that.
Me?
And for me, that's not me. It has no appeal to me whatsoever.
That's a different train track for you to
so it's
get onto.
And it's fascinating, to watch people do that. I'm amazed at how that comes together.
Yeah.
Whereas I often feel with mine, it's very undetermined and loose. But it's the bottom line is I enjoy every moment of it myself.
Yeah.
And I paint for myself.
Yeah. And you were self-taught, and you were always teaching yourself.
Absolutely.
You were an open vessel for learning something new.
For sure.
As opposed to even with music, those who have studied in the conservatoire have all the technical stuff, all the technique, and then they want to compose something from that data bank. Right. It's a different thing from me, who's again self-taught, and every time I wrote a song, it would end up being something new happening on the guitar, because I needed to stretch beyond the boundary. I had to learn a new little thing, a new way of saying something. Yeah, so there's an interesting spectrum of creativity.
Well, absolutely, and I find that fascinating because you and I have played music together.
Yeah.
And you've either been on the bass guitar or on ukulele.
Yeah.
And I'm typically on my cello.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, again, I'm removed from the process.
Right.
The sound comes in, my fingers do.
You're very intuitive.
And I hear that, but for me, it's not about the planning part of it. It's about what emerges, what happens. Yeah. And I get a sense that when we play together with the other people in our group as well, I mean, our main songwriter is Robert James, Robert McDonald, brilliant songwriter, brings these songs to the table for us, and in moments, once he shows us, it just sort of all comes together.
Good group of musicians that are able to respond in the moment intuitively and with some technical skill too.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I feel that energy. It's palpable.
Yeah.
I feel those musical notes as pulses of energy.
Yeah.
And being able to lay into those and match that in some way so that it sounds like
Yeah, music is a beautiful collaborative art. The visual arts are often much more solitary.
Yes.
In some cases, in commercial art, you get a team together to realize the piece, the labor-intensive or something. But music is fascinating in that it is a collaborative thing. And I can come ready with something. I have to prepare. I can't come naked. I'm not that good of a musician. But what I come prepared with, you bring it to the circle, and everybody adds to it and responds to it, and it becomes something new, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's like coming to the table with a line drawing, and then having someone add some color to it or a little bit to it. There's an interesting exercise that a lot of paint groups
do. You do classes, which is exploring all of that.
Yeah, and some, it's not so easy with watercolor, but with acrylic. And it wouldn't be easy with oil either because it takes too long to dry. But with acrylic paints, often I've seen it happen where everyone's given a canvas and some paints, and they'll start to paint, and then the timer will go off, and you have to hand it off to the next person.
Oh, nice.
And as it goes around the table, and then when it comes back, what you started, what you had in mind for that vase with flowers, is now a tropical sunset or Stonehenge or something. So it's how everybody puts their energy into it.
It's exploring the responsiveness and how that, the organic nature of art. So interesting, yeah, you just sort of contradicted me there in a sense that visual art can also be collaborative in that setting.
It can.
Where it is an exploration and a learning experience.
And that's more of an exercise, I think. I don't know, it might be something for a
I remember that from
product.
elementary school. Yeah,
But
very good exercise.
You know, so I would imagine with songwriting, I mean, I used to write poetry as a angsty teenager.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that for a long time. But I would imagine bringing a song to the table and having other musicians add to it.
Yeah.
That may not come as how you heard it in your head.
Oh, for sure. That's why I have some, limited experiences in bands, in groups of musicians, mostly a long, long time ago. That was an exciting and unique thing, because whatever you brought to the table was not going to be anything like that at the end. It was very much a melting pot, a stirring a pot of, various inspirations and responses and the reaction, almost chemical reaction of ideas.
And that can be exciting, or it can be frustrating. And like I say, if you're not willing to let that go, that's your baby. You created
Our
that.
band split up after a year because we did have too much tension that was not productive, I guess.
So I can see where that would be. Like I said, if you come to a setting where you've got this gem. And then suddenly it turns out to be,
Well, think of the Lennon and McCartneys or the Simon and Garfunkels. I've always yearned for some connection like that with somebody. I'm getting too old now. I've missed the boat, I guess. But I would love to have met my Garfunkel. And but again, look at how the tension that can erupt in any partnership. And through tension does come beauty and unforeseen creative gems. But it's a double-edged sword. It can destroy a partnership as well.
Well, and that tension, I think, whether it's in a group or as an individual,
Friction,
because as you alluded to earlier, visual art is very solitary. So, you're in your studio, you're painting, and I think a lot of artists experience that tension themselves.
Could very well be.
I can't get that.
Yeah, between here
and
the
to
hand
look
and the
like
brain.
I want it to look.
Yeah.
This is not working out. Or often for me, it's like when I sit down to paint and I go into that zone, I end up with a lot of landscapes that to me seem very similar. I don't know why this keeps coming out, but it is. And I sometimes think, I should take a break. I need to do something fresh and different. But do I? No.
Sometimes it is, well...
it feels good, so I'm going to do it. It's not that
your choice. You could abandon it and come back and then have something else emerge, or you can push through that tension and have something different emerge. And both are equally valid, I think,
Yeah.
Interesting.
We should write a song.
We should write a song and paint. Paint about it.
Well, and this is something that I've seen happen a lot too, especially in our community here, because we have so many talented people in so many different areas, and it's the collaboration. People will come together, and I know a couple that he's a musician, she's a painter. They've done painting to music, and at times they've invited dancers to come in and do interpretive dance to the music that's being played, and
I love that aspect of creativity.
Yeah, and we've done that here in your studio.
Yeah.
One night, people we were sitting around and sharing some music, and someone would just kind of burst into song, and someone I think was standing up, drumming and moving to the music, and
repeating a line, get everybody singing along, harmonizing.
Yeah, and there's something about that. As a musician, and I play stringed instruments, so there's vibration. Yeah. I don't know about other instruments, but I'm sure there's this similar thing. But the vibration frequency is amazing, and vocal vibration is very powerful. Yeah. It's like you have a child leaning on your shoulder and you're humming. Yeah. And it's calming to them, that vibration.
Well, a voice and a humming it does reverberate through your physiology. Yeah. And not just your consciousness. So I think we're talking good. We've got some great stuff going on here about, again, the spiritual aspect of creativity.
Thanks so much for joining us here today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Roger today as much as I did. If you'd like to learn more, hear more from us, because we've been doing more, follow along, subscribe to this channel, and leave a note below. Tell us what you think you'd like to hear more of. You can learn more about what I do by checking out my website, bandrystudio.com. That's BANDRAOI studio.com.